I want you to go back to a specific moment. It's, let's say, 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. Your boss pings you.
Oh, I know this feeling.
Right. And they say, hey, I need to know how the marketing department's spend compares to their revenue generation for Q3, broken down by week.
Yep.
So you open the file, and it is the Franken sheet, the 130 tabs, circular reference warnings, and the scroll bar is just this tiny little sliver.
And the spinning wheel of death appears.
The spinning wheel of death. That's it. And that really is the problem we're digging into today. We are moving beyond that Excel hell.
I like that, Chair.
We're going to talk about architecting, specifically architecting a financial dashboard in Power BI.
And architecting is absolutely the right word, because when you're in a spreadsheet, you're always reactive. You're pasting data, you're fixing formulas, dragging things down.
Actually putting out fires.
Exactly. Today, we're talking about building a system, a machine, really, that turns raw financial data into a decision-making engine without you having to touch it every single month.
So the guide we're looking at today takes a pretty hardcore approach. It's not just drag and drop. It starts with the really unsexy part.
The foundation.
The data model. And I have to be honest, when I first looked at this, my gut reaction was, why is this so complicated?
That is the most common reaction.
Yes.
It is.
And I have my data, right? I have a list of sales. I have a list of expenses. In Excel, I don't know, do a Velo OCUP, mash them into one giant table, throw a pivot table on it, and go to lunch.
The classic approach.
But this guide says, no, stop. Don't mash the data. Why? I mean, why make it harder on yourself?
Because that mash it all together strategy. Look, it works for 10 rows, even works for 100 rows. It completely fails at 1,000,000 rows.
Okay.
We're talking about a concept called the STAR schema, but we don't need to get too bogged down in the jargon. Just think of it like this. In your flat Excel file, if you have 1,000 transactions for the marketing department, you are literally typing the word marketing 1,000 times.
You're storing that text over and over.
It's heavy, it's slow, and it's worse than inefficient. It's fragile. If someone spells it MKTG in just one row, your entire pivot table breaks.
The whole report is wrong.
The Power BI approach, the architect approach, is to keep things in separate, clean buckets. You have your fact tables, which are just those long, heavy lists of numbers, sales, expenses.
And then the other ones.
And then you have your dimension tables. Those are the short, descriptive lists. Departments, products, locations, all the who and what.
You just wire them together.
You just wire them together. You create a relationship. Think of it like a permanent automatic VLO OCUP. It doesn't actually weigh down the file. You do it once, and it just works. It never breaks.
Okay, I can buy the efficiency argument. I can. But there's one specific table the guide insists on that always trips people up, the date table.
Ah, yes.
This feels like the biggest scam in business intelligence.
A scam. Wow, that's harsh.
Well, hear me out. My sales data has a column called date. My expense data also has a column called date. Why on earth do I need to create a third table that is just a list of dates? It feels like busy work.
I get that pushback constantly. I already have dates. Why do I need more dates?
Yeah.
But here's the reality check. Let's say you're a retail business. You're closed on Sundays.
Okay.
Or maybe you just had a weird Tuesday where, for whatever reason, 0 sales happened. If you only use the days from your sales table, that Tuesday doesn't exist in your data. It's not a row with 0 sales. It's just a void.
So the timeline has holes in it.
Precisely. A dedicated date table is your master timeline. It's a continuous, unbroken sequence of days, January 1st to December 31st, regardless of whether you sold anything.
So it forces the system to recognize that 0 sales is a piece of data, not just an empty space.
Exactly. It's the backbone. And it gets even more critical when you start talking about time intelligence. When the boss asks for same period last year.
The classic request, yes.
If you try to do that in Excel with your messy transaction dates, good luck. What if it's leap year? With a date table, Power BI just understands the calendar. It knows how to compare this February to last February instantly.
So we aren't just organizing data. We're basically teaching the computer how time works for our business.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah.
You are defining the temporal reality of your business.
All right, so we have our raw materials sorted. We modeled them. We built our backbone. Now we move to the engine room. Let's talk about DAX.
Data analysis expressions.
Now, for anyone who's just starting out, DAX looks a lot like Excel formulas, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You see a SECI-MM, you see a divide.
Very familiar on the surface.
But the way it works is just fundamentally different. I feel like so many people try to write DAX, like they write Excel formulas referencing cell A1 plus cell B2, and they hit a wall immediately.
That is the #1 stumbling block. In Excel, you think in coordinates, column A, row 1. In Power BI, with DAX, you have to think in columns and context. Yeah, you don't say add this cell. You say sum this entire column based on whatever filters are currently active on the report. It's a totally different way of thinking.
Let's use the profit margin example from the guide. In Excel, I would literally type revenue expense, revenue in a new column, and
Yeah.
just drag that formula down 10,000 rows.
Creating 10,000 separate calculations
Mm.
and massive file bloat.
Right. But in Power BI, the guide talks about creating a measure. How is that different from just adding a new column?
This is a huge architectural decision. Calculated column versus measure. A calculated column is static. It does the math when you load the data, stores the result, and it eats up your RAM.
And a measure.
A measure is dynamic. It's just a set of instructions. It doesn't even exist until you drag it onto a chart.
Right.
A virtual calculation that happens on the fly.
So when I drag that profit margin measure onto a report that's filtered for 2024, the engine runs the math right then and there just for 2024 data.
Exactly. And if you change the filter to the marketing department, it reruns the math instantly, just for marketing. It's lighter, faster, and just infinitely more flexible.
Okay, let's talk about the math itself, the division. The guide makes a big point about using the divide function instead of just the / symbol. It seems like a tiny detail, but I suspect there's a war story there.
Oh, there is. We've all seen it in Excel, right?
Yeah,
The dreaded #div0 error.
the error message of doom.
It happens when you try to calculate a margin for a product that hasn't sold yet. 0 revenue. And it just makes your whole dashboard look broken and unprofessional.
It does.
The divide function in DAX has a built-in safety net. You basically tell it, divide A by B, but if B is 0, just show me a 0 instead. It handles the error gracefully so your CEO doesn't call you asking why the dashboard is screaming at them.
That's smart. Okay, now we have to tackle the big one. The function that I think separates the casual users from the real pros. Calculate.
The most powerful function in the entire language, without a doubt.
The guide uses this for the year-over-year growth metric, and this is where my brain starts to hurt a little bit, because a chart usually shows you what you filtered for, right? If I filter for 2024, I see 2024 data.
That's the normal context.
But calculate seems to break that rule. It lets you show 2023 data while you're looking at a 2024 chart. How does it do that?
Think of it this way. Every chart has a boundary or a context. You're looking at June 2024. The context is June and 2024. Calculate is the only function that has the authority to step outside of that context.
That's a loophole.
It's more like a modifier.
Yeah.
When you write the formula for last year's revenue, you're telling DAX, hey, I know the user is looking at 2024, but for this one specific calculation, I want you to ignore that, step back exactly 1 year, grab that number, and then bring it back here.
That is just wild when you think about it. It's performing time travel in the background.
It's called context transition. And it's why Power BI just blows Excel away for this kind of analysis.
Yeah.
The heavy lifting is done by the logic, not by your copy paste skills.
You build it once and it serves you forever.
Exactly.
Okay, so the engine is running. We have our measures. We have our time travel function. Now we have to actually put this on a screen. Phase 3, visualization. And this is where I think a lot of us, myself included, can get it wrong. We just want to make it look cool.
The candy store effect. So many buttons, so many colors.
Right. Ooh, let's use the donut chart or that funky tree map.
But the guide is really strict here. It argues that design isn't about aesthetics. It's about psychology.
It's about cognitive load. The person looking at this dashboard has, 5 seconds to understand what's going on? If they have to spend time deciphering a complex graphic, you've already failed.
So let's talk about the Z pattern.
This is standard stuff in UI/UX theory. In the West, we read left to right, top to bottom. Our eyes naturally scan a screen in a Z shape. So the most critical information has to go where the eye lands first.
Which is the top left. Top left. No question. That's why the guide says to put your big, bold KPI cards, your net profit, your total revenue, right there. Before I look at anything else, just tell me, are we winning or losing?
It's the traffic light. Green number, good. Red number, bad. Simple.
Then, once I know the score, I can dig into the details.
And for details like revenue versus expense, the guide recommends a very specific chart, the clustered column chart. Why that one?
Because our brains are just really, really good at comparing the lengths of things that are side by side. You have a blue bar for revenue and a red bar for expenses right next to it for done. Your brain instantly processes the gap.
You don't even need to read the numbers to know you lost money that month.
You know it instantly. Now contrast that with the pie chart, the guide. Well, it seems to really hate pie charts.
Why the hate? I hear this all the time. Friends don't let friends use pie charts.
Because our brains are terrible at comparing angles and areas. If I show you a slice that's 32% and another that's 35%, they look almost identical. But if I show you two bars, you can instantly see which one is longer.
So for breaking down expenses by department,
Use a bar chart. Sort it from largest to smallest. The longest bar is your biggest spender. It's immediate insight, no friction. If the user has to hover over the chart to read the tooltip just to understand it, the visual has failed.
so we've architected the data, we've coded the engine, we've designed the interface. Now we get to the payoff, phase 4, the analysis, the so what of it all.
This is the big shift, from being operational to being strategic.
Okay, give me a scenario. How does this kind of dashboard catch something that a giant spreadsheet would probably miss?
Let's talk about the volume versus efficiency trap. So you're looking at your old spreadsheet report, you see the top line, revenue's up 20% year over year, everyone high fives.
Great news.
Then you look at the bottom line, net profit is totally flat.
Okay, that's a bit weird, but hey, revenue is up.
And in a spreadsheet, those two numbers might be on different tabs or, hundreds of rows apart.
Yeah.
You might miss the connection. But on a well-architected dashboard, you have a profit margin gauge right next to your revenue number.
And you see it instantly.
You instantly see that while revenue went up, your margin tanked. It drops from 15% to 10%. So you're working harder to make the same amount of money.
And that forces you to ask why.
Exactly. You click on that month, you drill down into the expense bar chart we built, and you see it. Cost of goods sold spiked. Or maybe marketing spent triple their budget to get that extra revenue. Suddenly you're not celebrating growth, you're fixing a leak.
That's the difference between just reporting the news and actually making news.
It's the difference between data entry and business intelligence.
The guide also touches on the crystal ball element, the forecasting. Power BI can actually project that line chart forward, can it?
It can. It's moving from descriptive analytics, what happened, to predictive analytics, what will probably happen. It uses the historical patterns in your data to give you a probable range.
And this leads me to my final, maybe slightly provocative thought for today. We're getting really good at this. The tools are getting incredibly powerful.
They are.
So here's the scenario. The dashboard predicts a downturn next quarter. The algorithm says, based on these trends, revenue is going to drop 15%. So management looks at that forecast and decides to do a round of layoffs to preserve the profit margin.
A preemptive strike.
A preemptive strike, exactly. But what if the model was wrong? What if it missed some new market shift or a big competitor collapsing? The downturn never happens. We just fired people based on a ghost in the machine.
That is the ultimate ethical dilemma of modern analytics, isn't it?
So at what point does the dashboard stop being a tool we use and start becoming the decision maker? If we trust the architecting that much, do we start to lose our own intuition?
It's a valid fear. I think the answer lies in who holds the keys. The dashboard is a compass. It's not the captain. It tells you where the wind is blowing. But if you steer the ship straight into the rocks because the compass said north, well, that's still on you.
The human in the loop.
Always. You have to have someone who understands the context that isn't in the data. The dashboard knows numbers. It doesn't know your main competitor just got sued, or that a new law was passed that changes everything.
So be a great architect. Build the clean model, write the good DAX, design the smart visuals, but don't turn off your brain just because the chart looks pretty.
Amen to that.
That is a wrap on our deep dive into architecting financial dashboards. Hopefully next time you're staring at that spinning wheel of death, you'll remember there's a better way. Thanks for listening.
Happy building.